Hey, good morning, everybody. We've got a new project here that I haven't recorded any of the process of this build, but I have a before video that we're gonna combine with an after video. But I did have some things that came up during this build that I couldn't find a lot of information on. Just a couple of things that were problematic. So what this is a Chinese side-by-side or UTV, and it had a 150cc engine in it and just didn't have enough power for the trails we were riding as far as going up hills. Was a little bit slow, would only do like 30 miles an hour, but as soon as you got into a hill, down to 5 miles an hour. Just wanted a little more power and a little more speed to keep up with our Polaris 500s. What we did is we put a Vanguard, 16 horse Vanguard in it, and the common reverse gearbox that you see online, and a 40 series Amazon torque converter. Some issues with that stuff during this build. None of this is 100% done. Just have some finishing work to do, but like installing the bed. So it's the Vanguard breather. I did put a rev kit in this Vanguard, but I'm not really utilizing it. I'm still running about 3,600 RPM with the governor. Relocated the shocks on this to, this chassis was used for go-karts originally, I think, before they turned it into a UTV, and just ran really, the rear suspension really sucks. So one of the problems I had was getting this clutch to work right, and on these 40 series Amazon torque converters, it comes with a red spring in here, and the rotation is wrong for this install. Even though this is how they show to install it, it will not work like this. The belt will just slip like crazy and spit it out. You have to put the reverse wound yellow spring in here and get your drive buttons come on this side. You need them on the other side. So that was a huge thing. Once you put that reverse wound spring in there, this thing has got a ton of power. Belt doesn't slip. Currently, it does 37 miles an hour at 3,600 RPM with a 22-inch tire. I'm going to be changing. Right now, I have the driven sprocket in the back of here to the input shaft on the transmission is 1-to-1, 16 and 16. I'm going to overdrive that a little bit and go 14 here to 16 teeth there. I have a 9-tooth on the output and a 40-tooth original sprocket down here. So I'm just hoping to get it to cruise around 40 miles an hour. That's really all we're looking for. We're really close, but it is, just would like to get some more. Also on the Vanguard V-twin, the rev kit, pretty straightforward to put on. I probably don't need it. Originally, I was going to try and run it around 44 to 5,000 RPM, right around there. But I don't want to work it that hard. I've got plenty of power without doing that. And, so the rev kit is there if we want it. Also, I have my daughters drive this, and young kids, they're old enough to handle the speed, but they're not conscious enough to keep an eye on a tachometer, and I didn't want them to over rev it, and be running it real hard. So for now, I left the governor on, and yeah, that's got its share of irritations, but it keeps the kids out of trouble and keeps the engine in one piece. I did add an oil cooler, which is just a factory oil cooler for an 18 horsepower Vanguard. And if you notice, there's a space here. And the reason for that I found is that the 18 horsepower and up Vanguards have a bigger blower housing and a bigger cooling fan. And there's holes in this blower housing so that the fan can cool this. They don't recommend putting holes in this cover to cool the oil cooler without changing the fan and the blower housing, as they claim that it won't have enough air volume to cool the rest of the engine like it should if you put holes in the cover for the oil cooler. So I just added the oil cooler for a little extra, and there's enough space here where I should get just some air moving, you know, at 40 miles an hour. Some air should go through there, should help a little bit. And again, we're running pretty much the factory RPM anyways. Also, I did add an adjustable brace here to the back of my torque converter mounting plate. It did flex quite a bit, so I did add that. I would recommend doing something like that on these Chinese torque converters. Other than that, it seems to be holding up pretty well. Again, this was a budget build. It's just kind of stuff we had laying around. The engine I paid nothing for. Also, one last topic on this engine came out of a Case garden tractor, and it had someone retrofitted this engine into it, and it had a they cut the end of the crankshaft off so they could fit a Lovejoy coupler in a tight space. And of course that doesn't work for us, so I was just going to order a new crank, and they are about $350 for this engine. And what I found, it actually worked really good with this clutch setup, is I was only able to find a used vertical shaft engine, and although you can't really see very well here, the biggest difference between the vertical shaft and the horizontal shaft is the length of the crankshaft. So on your horizontal shaft, your front cover here is very shallow. On your vertical shaft, it's actually the oil pan also, so it's about an inch or so deeper, so the crankshaft has to be a little bit longer. This crank, a vertical shaft crank on this, will fit directly in this block, and it just sits out, and you have about an inch of extra crankshaft here that's the same size as the bearing journal and the seal surface. And that worked to our advantage because it really got the torque converter lined up actually perfect without having to add any spacers. And this is the Amazon torque converter, and that's a 40 series again. So that was a thing also, and that crankshaft was used about $75 with shipping, so it was a huge saver to make this engine work, considering I saw the engine was free to us, and it runs really nice. So I will do, at some point here, I'm going to try and do another video of it running. It does currently run and drive great. I just have some cleanup work to do, some finish welding and painting, and got to finish mounting the box and things like that, because we had to raise the box about 4 or 5 inches with the additional suspension travel we gained and the extra height of the motor. So I will we're using all the factory axle and the factory brakes, and I know some of this is not the cleanest, nicest looking, but again, this was a budget build. A lot of the metal we used was just stuff we had laying around, and some of the old parts that we took off that 150 as far as the mounting brackets and things, but fits in there really good. It runs really nice. So I hope a couple of those issues that I had kind of help somebody. Maybe you have a cart like this. I will tell you, it's not a rocket, but it runs really nice. It's kind of fun to drive. So as opposed to before, it was just, it just drove. It wasn't fun at all, really. I mean, I guess a little, but. So if you guys have any questions on anything, that I know the camera work is not the best here, but if you have any questions on how any of this went together, or if you need a better picture of the gearbox and that, let me know. So thanks.